Welcome to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, a podcast that empowers higher ed marketers to bring innovation, creativity, and excellence to their work. I'm your host, Jaime Hunt. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the best minds in higher education marketing. Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher educational professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Hi, I'm a higher ed CMO, and I have a confession to make. My number one most downloaded episode by hundreds is the episode with Bryce Hoffman, where he talks about his journey from being laid off to leveraging his network to find a career pivot. And I am so thrilled to have gotten to know Bryce so much over the past over a year now, or about a year. And I am happy to see him here at AMA to give us an update on what is going on in his life now. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back on the show and with a more positive story to tell.
Yes. So what's going on with you? I assume our listeners, the fact that your episode has been downloaded 1,000 times since it came out, I think our listeners would love to hear what's new with you.
First of all, it's mind-blowing to me that many people have listened or taken the time to kind of go on that journey with me. And I know from running into some people that some people have gone down that same road that I went down. And that was always my intention, was to try to help people who found themselves in that now what do I do moment in their career, because it happens to good people and it happens all the time. In the intervening couple of years, it's been almost 2 years since that story started for me. It's been a busy time. I've been at the University of New Hampshire for a little over a year and a half. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've loved being there as the assistant vice president for integrated marketing, but I am making one new career pivot. I was recently announced as the new vice president and chief marketing communications officer at Worcester Polytechnic Institute.
Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. I was lucky enough to kind of follow along with Bryce's journey on this job. Tell us a little bit about why you're excited about this role.
When you look at the universities and institutions in our sector that have the capacity to be truly different in the marketplace, one of the ones that I believe in really strongly is a place like Worcester Polytechnic that has difference built into almost every aspect of its operations compared to the vast majority of our sector. It's a STEM-focused private institution. It's mid-size. It's in an urban location. It has a long history. It's a really fabulous campus with a really fabulous culture around project-based learning and around global learning. So most of the students, vast majority, at some point work in one of our global project centers. They're all over the world. It's such an enviable position to be in, to have a differentiated product to work on. And when I was interviewing for this position, one thing I said to people all over the campus is WPI is one of the schools that can be a unicorn brand in this space. I believe that. Now that I've put that chip down, we'll see if we can deliver on it with the very talented team that I'm inheriting.
That's awesome. I think hearing your enthusiasm about this role over the past couple of months and being able to see you just get more and more excited about it over the time has been so fun to see. There's two areas I want to lean into for the rest of this conversation. One of them is, I know the moment that you realized that you were being laid off and that it was unexpected and coming out of nowhere, it felt like probably a big career setback. And I know when I've had big setbacks, I have felt like my life as I know it is over. I'm never going to recover from this. I'm never going to get to my goals. And I think it's helpful for people to hear people who've been in that situation and are now like, no, that was the universe doing one thing that gets me to something better. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around that.
It's definitely one of those things that looks different in hindsight than when you're going through it. When you're going through it, you feel so much doubt. You question things about yourself, assumptions that you made. You wonder, what you could have done or what you didn't do that led to this to happen. And the truth is that a lot of the time it's not about you at all. It's about somebody else and the journey they're on and the decisions they're taking. And looking back on it now, it was an immense opportunity for growth. And that's something that you can say more easily when you've gotten to the other end of that dark times. But I have met so many people, you being one of them, that have entered my life and become very valuable and important to me. I've met new leaders. I've had new teams. I have seen methodologies I never considered before. So being open-minded and adaptive, I've experienced more professional growth in the last 24 months than I did in probably the 5 years preceding that, when I was, while working very hard, comfortable in a role that I knew how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And entering situations where I don't know everything that I need to do or even how to do it is exhilarating as much as it is exhausting. And now I'm going to be the new kid in school again. This will be my 5th institution in higher education. So I know a little bit about how to do that, but the nerves are the same. And the desire to come in and become a member of the team and to earn credibility and to advance the agenda of someone who I think is a very dynamic president. There's a lot to do, and I can't wait to start doing it.
You mentioned earlier a little bit about it giving you a little bit of self-doubt when you're in these situations. And how did you overcome imposter syndrome or overcome that self-doubt to go through this process, to even be like, yeah, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring on this. I'm going to be the confident person that I need to be to get this job. How did you overcome that?
I don't know if I've overcome it so much as I acknowledge the feeling when I have it, and then I try to put it aside and deal with what's in front of me. One of my passions in life is road cycling, and the kind of racing I do is hill climb racing, which means that we start at the bottom of a hill and we finish at the top of a hill, and there's no downhill in between. So it's hard, it's arduous. When you're standing at the bottom of a mountain and looking at the top, you think, I cannot do that. So you don't do the whole mountain, you do the next 10 feet. And then you do the next 10 feet after that. And as long as you're concentrated on what you're doing, you don't have time to concentrate on your doubts. And there are times to nurse those and seek reassurance and go within your network and your safe spaces and your safe people and say, am I doing okay? Am I doing all right? And you can get that reassurance and you can go on another 10 feet up the mountain. When I was interviewing at WPI, one of the few things I said to the president in terms of what I need, I said, I'm kind of a cactus. I don't need all the water all the time. But I said, once in a while, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, are we good? And all I need you to say is, yeah, we're good. And so that's our deal.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate that you're able to have that conversation with her right up front. I mean, you haven't even started yet, and that she's on board with that.
And she's been, fantastically open. And this is my first president that I'm reporting to directly. So I don't have a template to compare it to. But this is the kind of relationship I was hoping to have when I, finally came into a role like this, which has been a career-long ambition for me. So it's a very exciting moment.
I wish for you the relationship that I had with some of the presidents I've worked for, where you're just, it can be so beautiful and so tight and so connected. And I just wish that for you. I hope that's what you end up experiencing. I'm looking forward to touching base with you a couple months after you start and hearing more about that. This is such an exciting time. I know there's a lot of listeners who are aspiring CMOs. What advice would you give to them?
That's a great question. I'll say that for me, the most valuable thing has been to continuously collect a diverse set of experiences, take on the projects that don't feel comfortable, take on the projects that other people don't want to take on, make yourself diverse and valuable. I think it's harder to go to the higher levels of leadership if you're specializing in one small area. It just becomes limiting eventually. And that means that a lot of times you're going to go back to the basics and have to learn something, not from the position of a leader, but from the position of a learner, and learn how to apply that into your overall set of skills and abilities. And it doesn't mean you have to become the best at it. You just have to become conversant enough in it that when you're interacting with people across your campus, they can see that you have credibility across the spectrum of marketing communications function, depending on how the role is set up. Because when you interview for that job, as I just did, and it was a long and well-vetted process, they're going to find your soft underbelly and they're going to say, is this going to be a problem for us? For me, while I have some experience in, for example, crisis communications, I've never been the leader or very seldom the leader in those conversations. And they wanted to know, is this guy going to keep it together if the moment comes when we need him to be our counselor in the room for crisis? And I talked about my role as a newspaper journalist coming into chaotic situations, making sense of it, creating a narrative when there's still a lot up in the air, and also that ability to say, I don't have to lead every conversation. I can rely on specialists. That's what they're on the team for. So that humility to also not try to bluff that you have answers that you don't have. It's a fine and delicate dance, I discovered, to try to be all those things, but also not oversell yourself.
That's an important point. And I think that when you do oversell yourself, when I've been in interviews where I've been interviewing somebody and you're like, this person seems like they are amazing. And then you talk to a reference and they're like, they didn't do that thing that they told you that they did. Like, that's such a mistake. Like, be your authentic, true self in that process.
I can't agree more with that. And when I think about, some of the conversations that I had, it's very awkward to be a job candidate, especially if you're somebody who always wants to give credit to your team, because you have to sit in that room and sort of talk, you feel like you're taking credit for the work of a lot of people. And they don't necessarily want to hear the names of all the people you worked with but you have to acknowledge that anything big is not an individual's effort, but you do have to take credit for where you contributed value and to be able to identify them in your job narratives. When you think about it, because you have to walk in with a collection of anecdotes, because you can't use the same one over and over again. You have to know not just, okay, what was the issue, but what did I contribute that was uniquely valuable to that situation? And then how do I know it was valuable?
So, Bryce, what are your plans for your first 30, 60, 90 days?
I have a lot to learn. I know that's not the world's most original thought, but I have a whole campus full of people who they've taken the search very seriously. It was a long and thorough process, and they have high hopes for, in me. They place a lot of confidence in me to bring a type of leadership that they're looking for. And I want to reward that with really the best work of my career, if I can. And that means I'm going to try hard to not try to apply formulas that have worked in the past until I understand the context that I'm in, the people that are around me, their strengths, where do we have something that needs to be shored up or addressed. But I'm going to try really hard not to act fast, but also not to act too slowly. There's all these balancing acts that I have to work on. And that's what I'm going to be learning in real time as I come into this role, because I've got, a cabinet constituency and a leadership constituency. I also have a team that has a new leader that they haven't had somebody come from the outside in a long time. They're very interested in what new things I might bring. But I'm sure also concerned, as I would be, that a new leader can come in and make an unwitting mistake. And one of the first questions I've asked everybody is, what absolutely cannot change? So I can take that into consideration and be really thoughtful about what change is made. And the important thing to me is that whatever change we make, we're going to make together. The last thing I would want to be is that leader who comes in as if they have all the answers in a context that they're just coming to understand.
I love that. And the last thing I want to touch on is, so I've been through 3 VP searches, actually 4, but one I turned down because the pandemic had just started. And with the exception of the Old Dominion one, where I went from phone call to offer in 13 days, they have been grueling processes. Like, we're talking about an officer of the university. It's a lot of interviews. It's a lot of vetting and all of that. What kind of advice did you give for people to have stamina? If this is their first time going into this type of process, what kind of advice do you have about maintaining stamina and enthusiasm through that?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on that. And it needs to be a grueling process. Grueling is maybe not the right word, but it's very thorough. And that's a reflection of the importance they're placing on the role. And I think to a degree, a lot of these positions come with a day on campus that it can be pretty long. It can be pretty involved. You can meet with dozens, maybe hundreds of people, big group interviews, small group interviews. I will tell you right now, one of my pro tips, bring a bag of M&Ms. You might need to eat it in the bathroom.
That is a pro tip.
And that's because, you'll get lunch, but you also are trying to engage people as much as you can. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of content. And your ability to handle that process and to still be smiling at the end of a long day is part of what they're looking for. The people who can't get through that day are not going to survive in that role. They're not going to be able to thrive when things get chaotic. And when they really need a leader who can keep their composure and continue to make good decisions when they're feeling a little bit fatigued. So that's by design that those processes are that way. And I would also say, have your people who can be your advisors on the side, people you can call and say, have you experienced this before? I mean, Jamie, you and I had some conversations along the way, and you were extremely valuable to me in that respect. So that you can have those unguarded moments about how that process is going for you, and maybe have somebody say, well, here's a question I think you should ask based on how this has been going so far. I think to go through it alone with no counsel would be very, very difficult. And of course, depending on who's in your life, I have a spouse who's been a wonderful resource to me, many, many professionals in my life. And one of the unexpected benefits of something like this is you get to rekindle your entire network and people that you've worked with over the years. I mean, my boss from 15 years ago was able to supply a reference for me. And it gives you a chance to reconnect with those people and say, hey, how are you? I need something from you. And I'm sorry I always call when I need this. But people are so happy to do it. And it's really, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised by how many people were willing to say, I'll take time out of my day to say something good about you, so to get you this opportunity. And if you're one of those people and you're listening, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I just think that's such a testament to the type of career that you've had and the type of relationships that you've built over the course of your career, but also a testament to this profession and how we always have each other's backs. We always do the hard thing for each other. I was just talking to someone about how, this in the senior leadership experience part of AMA, how you are making connections where you can pick up the phone and call somebody and they'll drop everything to help you. And it's just beautiful. I know Jack Martin at Washington. I emailed him about something I was dealing with, and he called me back in 45 minutes, and he was on vacation. And I'd never met him. He had a similar problem. I looked him up. I called his desk phone or sent him an email, and he immediately called me back. That's the industry we're in, and it's beautiful.
It really is. And it's been one of the things so my supervisor at UNH came from consumer packaged goods. And it's one of the things that she has continuously marveled at is how forthcoming higher ed marketers are about what's working for them and what's not working for them. And it didn't compute for her because in competitive, the kind of industry that she had been in, you would never reveal anything about how you were winning market share. And, I think higher ed is going to come closer to that because we all have to grow our market share, and we can't all do that by sharing all of our trade secrets with each other. But on a personal level, person to person, this is still a small industry. And, I've been running around this conference, and it seems like every room I walk into now, there's a friend and somebody that I've, shared tips with, or they've shared tips with me, or we've, had a beer at a conference or whatever it might be. And it's nice to see the same faces and see how professional and just willing to help people are. It's a great industry to be in.
It really is. And I feel like right now, it's like I am anointing you a higher ed CMO. You've joined the ranks of higher ed CMOs. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you, Bryce. If people want to get in touch with you for whatever reason, where can they find you?
I'm easiest to find on LinkedIn, Bryce T. Hoffman, and I would love to connect.
Awesome. And as always, you can find me at LinkedIn at Jaime Hunt. And Bryce, you know how the episodes end. So let's do it together. 1, 2, 3. Let's go bust some silos.
Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry best as your host. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Eddie Francis, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.